today for the rally to save the South Village. We are gathered here in front of the Children's Aid Society because, as most people know, these buildings and this institution is endangered. One of many great pieces of the South Village history that we are in danger of losing. My name is Andrew Berman. I'm the Executive Director of the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation. We have with us today City Council Member Margaret Chin. We have State Senator Tom Duane's Chief of Staff, Laura Morrison. We have a bunch of really great speakers today who we'll be getting to shortly, and a wonderful broad array of community groups that are sponsoring this effort to get the South Village landmarked. The South Village, as many of you know, is the neighborhood, the part of Greenwich Village south of Washington Square Park, which for many years was the center of immigrant life in Greenwich Village, in Lower Manhattan. Waves of immigrants came through this neighborhood in the late 19th and early 20th century. The architecture that you see around us, which is unchanged for the last 100 to 150 years, was built to house these working class people who came to America to make a new life for themselves, to start over here, who contributed so much to our great city and our great country. These institutions like the Children's Aid Society, Judson Memorial Church, the Little Red Schoolhouse, and so many others, St. Anthony of Padua Church, which is a co-sponsor of today's rally, Our Lady of Pompeii, were all set up to serve these immigrants who had come to America to make a great new life for themselves. This neighborhood embodies that wonderful history, but it's endangered. We have been losing more and more of the neighborhood as every year goes by, as we have petitioned the city to landmark the South Village like the rest of Greenwich Village, like other wonderful historic neighborhoods like Soho or Brooklyn Heights or Park Slope, which are so clearly such important parts of our city's history and are preserved through landmark designation, but the South Village is not. And if you look over here, you can see this is a map of the South Village. These are all of the buildings that we have lost or are in danger of losing in the neighborhood. It's actually just a sample of them. We lost the Circle in the Square Theater, New York's first nonprofit theater. We lost the Provincetown Playhouse and Apartments, which were demolished recently by NYU. We lost 178 Bleecker Street, just around the corner from here. On Bleecker Street, you can see a gaping hole in the middle of that block of 1860s houses. They tore one down right in the middle. We don't know what's going to get built there. Without landmark designation, it could be something terribly out of scale, out of context, inappropriate for this neighborhood. We are here today to say the city needs to act. They did landmark the first third of this neighborhood many months ago. We've been petitioning them for years. They promised at the time that they were going to follow up by moving on the remaining two-thirds of the neighborhood, which includes where we are right now, but they have not yet. So we're here to say we don't have any more time to waste. There's no more time to contemplate this. The city needs to move and landmark now. And I want to show you one of the many reasons why. This is what could be built on the site of Children's Aid without landmark designation. This is the kind of thing that we've seen happen time and time again in our neighborhood without landmark protections. This is woefully out of context. It is not what this neighborhood wants or needs. It's not respectful of this neighborhood's history, and that's why we're here today to say that we need landmark designation now. As a part of this effort and a part of the proposal that we have made to the city for landmark designation, we've been incredibly fortunate to have the support of many important people and groups. And one of our strong supporters is City Council Member Margaret Chin, who represents part of this neighborhood, but including where we are standing right now. She has been working with us to try to get it designated. She's been speaking to the Landmarks Preservation Commission, and I want to ask her to come up and speak.
Thank you, Andrew. And I subway on Bleecker Street, and I passed by the NYU area, and I took a second look again. It's so wonderful to hear the birds singing, right? But if they get rid of the green space and build tall building, where are the birds going to go? We won't hear them sing anymore. And I think it's so important that in New York City, what makes our city great is the characters of our neighborhood, the diversity, and the authenticity of what the city represents to all of us. And that's why we need to fight to preserve before any more speculative development comes in. A lot of time when they come in and they tear down the building, they might not have the financing, but they want to do it first before it gets to be landmarked. So what we have found on the Bowery is a big hole, attracting rats, rather than preserving what we have. So I thank you all, and we need to continue to fight, because the Landmark Commission did preserve 1/3 of the district. And because they have the whole city to deal with, they need to hear from the community. That it's important to continue to expand this landmark so that all of South Village gets protected. I mean, look at the building of Children's Aid Society. It represents the history of our city. And it would be a shame if we lose it. Even though the institution has committed to making it, keeping the way it is and bring another educational institution in, but there's no guarantee. So that's why I thank, Andrew and all of you, and just hope that you keep on raising your voices. Let the Landmark Commissioner, let the Bloomberg, our mayor knows that it's important to our community, and let's keep the fight going until we get the whole South Village landmark. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret. It's really fantastic to have such a strong supporter among our elected officials. And as Margaret mentioned, part of what we hear from the city is that the Landmarks Preservation Commission has an entire city to look at, and that is true. But there is no denying that the South Village is immediately threatened, that it's extremely important to the city as a whole, and we're fortunate to have among our strong supporters the Historic Districts Council, which represents historic neighborhoods throughout the city, who has also been pushing to get this neighborhood landmarked. And I'm going to ask their executive director, Simeon Bankoff, to come up and speak.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm Simeon Bankoff, Executive Director of the Historic Districts Council. As Andrew mentioned, we work with 500 neighborhood-based groups in all 5 boroughs, looking to preserve their sense of place, the physical environment of their neighborhoods. Now, for years, we have been asking, along with Andrew and elected officials, and pretty much everybody, to save the South Village. This is the heart of the Greenwich Village area. This is what many people think of when they think of Greenwich Village. Walking here from the subway, I passed where the Poe House was. I passed where the Provincetown Playhouse was. These are attacks. How many more heart attacks do we need for until the city does the right thing? This is a case where we know what we have. Everyone is aware of what should be done. The Landmarks Commission, has actually started the process, but then they've gotten mired, and it's been years since they've done anything. The question is, how long is too long? Now is too long. They need to save the South Village now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simeon. Everybody join me in a quick chant. Save the South Village. 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 Our next speaker is somebody who from the beginning has been a really strong supporter of this effort. He's the director of the Soho Alliance, and of course Soho, which is a designated historic district and which borders the South Village, shares a lot of our history. He's been a great friend of this effort, both as the director of the Soho Alliance and as the chair of the Landmarks Committee of Community Board 2. I want to ask Sean Sweeney to come up here.
A city deserves the culture it creates, and it deserves the culture it preserves. And a city is only as good as the culture it has. So we asked the Landmarks Commission to help us preserve our culture, the culture of bohemian, early 20th century Greenwich Village that brought me here, and I'm sure a lot of other people, as well as the immigrant culture endemic and indigent to the South Village, namely the Italian culture. You know, the Landmarks Commission is wonderful. We thank them for landmarking and designating the mansions of the Vanderbilts and the Coopers and the Hewitts, but we also ask them to turn their eyes on these beautiful buildings, in my opinion, just as worthy, and these wonderful institutions that house the residents, the immigrants, that took care of the immigrants, the poor immigrant children, and ask them to preserve these buildings and institutions where the anonymous souls who built this country, created the city's architecture, and created the city's culture contributed. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Sean. It's so important that we have allies in the community and on the community board who have been helping us with this effort.